I'm glad you're here today, Gina, and I appreciate your willingness to do the interview, and I'm sure a lot of people will get a lot out of hearing your story. Why don't you start with where you were, if you remember, when you first found out you were sick, and how did they figure out that it was valley fever?
That's actually a tough question because it was quite a while before I was actually diagnosed. I had been sick for quite a while. Since I had broken my leg, I had a surgery on my leg at the end of 2006. And it took them quite a few months to even realize that I did have valley fever. And when I found that out, I was actually in the hospital and had been in the hospital for probably a couple of weeks. A couple of months after I had been having the symptoms. And even at that time, I was still being misdiagnosed as to what type of valley fever I had at that time.
When you said you were in the hospital, do you think that you might have actually contracted it there rather than previous to being in the hospital?
That's a tough, yeah, that's kind of entered my mind at times. However, I was having some trouble breathing about starting 6 months before I broke my leg. And I had a lot of tests done for asthma. They were calling it asthma, and they were giving me inhalers. It's about 6 months before, like I said, I had the surgery on my leg. But after I had the surgery, immediately after, because I had to have a tib fid rotting in my right leg.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty bad surgery. But after I had the surgery, immediately I was having trouble breathing. They kept saying that it was from the anesthesia and that was normal. But in my case, it just kept going downhill very, very, very quickly.
When you
It's
say it
hard to
went
say
downhill,
whether I did have asthma at that time 6 months before or whether it was valley fever before.
when you say it went downhill, what specifically was happening to your health?
It started out immediately after I had the surgery where I was having severe trouble breathing. And they're, like I said, we're calling it problems from the anesthesia or just leftover anesthesia in the body, but it was not that. From there, I ended up getting fevers and a really bad cough, which was worsening, severe fatigue to the point where I was just barely even able to crutches. And very soon after I had that, I wasn't even using crutches because I was so weak. I ended up in a wheelchair. I started getting symptoms like vomiting, and I wasn't eating. I lost a ton of weight, and I had excruciating headaches, and the back of my neck was hurting severely. Meningitis symptoms, fever, vomiting. Back of my neck was hurting really bad, and weakness, and a lot of problems with the light in my eyes, and I couldn't do anything.
So which doctor did you see who finally suggested being tested for valley fever?
The doctor that I saw, actually, we had to beg for this test. It was Dr. S. Patel. There's several Dr. Patels here where we live. His name was Dr. Sunil Patel. My mom begged him. My mom said, I really feel she's dying. There's something wrong with her, and you need to do some further testing. If you do not do further testing on her, she's going to die. He pulled out a lab slip finally, was very nonchalant about it, like, you guys are just being, anxiety-ridden over this. This is not a big deal. There's nothing wrong. But in all of the tests that he ordered, which were several, he ordered a valley fever titers test, which ended up coming back positive.
Do you know your actual initial titer that you had?
I couldn't tell you, but I know that it wasn't very high, and my titers have never actually matched up to how severe the disease was in my body. So I've had to, I spent a lot of time with the doctors going over this. It wasn't really found for a couple of years that my titers weren't matching up to the severity of the disease in my body. And when there was actually one doctor who found out that, yeah, you're not having your titers match up to what's going on with you. They should be sky high, right now, and they're really low. It's just not normal. That was Dr. Beebe in Modesto. He started using the spinal taps to dictate where my disease was at.
Is he an infectious disease doctor?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the other doctor, what type of doctor was he?
The first initial doctor was a general practice doctor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But then after him, I had an infectious disease doctor in Tracy, California, which made numerous mistakes with my disease. So.
Were some of these mistakes wrong treatments, for example? Or can you describe what some of them were?
Not treating me correctly, or not treating me aggressively enough, and not treating me for the type of... I had coccidioidomycosis right from the beginning. It went so fast after I had that surgery. I had meningitis, it was the end of November when I had the surgery on my leg. And like I said, it was immediately after when I started having all of the symptoms immediately. So it was December when I was admitted into the hospital. And from there, January, I was in the hospital still. And then they found out in January that I had valley fever. Yet they were just treating me as if I had just a valley fever, a general case of valley fever, not coccidioidomycosis. So they did give me a very low dose of the antifungals at that time.
And how long was it before they started to realize, what was the time frame there, that they finally realized how serious your case was and was treating you aggressively?
They didn't find out. No, I had to actually leave there. I had several relapses within a year, 2 to 3 relapses in the first year of coccidioidomycosis. And then I took it upon myself to go ahead and leave her and go to UCSF in San Francisco. And I started seeing the infectious disease doctor there as an outpatient. And he started immediately raising the dose of my diflucan. And I started switching my medicines kind of back and forth with the antifungals. That seemed to cause a problem with me because I did end up relapsing again. I mean, who's to say whether it was that or just the fact that the disease was worsening? I'm not sure. But
which antifungals were you taking? Which types?
I was taking diflucan in the beginning, and that's what I'm on now. In between, I took posaconazole. Can you name me a few? Because I could...
Itraconazole, ketoconazole, and...
Voriconazole.
Oh, voriconazole I took, yes. Voriconazole gave me a lot of problems with my eyes.
That's
my
typical.
eyesight. So I went off that. Posaconazole, my titers and the disease seemed to be getting worse on it.
Really?
And at that time, it wasn't even... I don't think it was even actually... I think it was a trial drug at that time when I did it.
Yeah, it could be because it hasn't been around that long.
It hasn't even officially been approved for valley fever today. It's just something that's off-label use that they know it can be used for valley fever.
Yeah. So I believe those 3. I want to say I tried itraconazole also, but I'm not sure. But I've also had amphotericin B.
How long did you have the intravenous treatment?
I had the intrathecal going in here.
Yes.
To the Ommaya Reservoir. I had it for about 6 months. They put it into the intrathecal, and they also put it in a PICC line, all at the same time, along with diflucan also.
Would you explain to people watching this what those procedures actually are so that people could understand what you had to go through?
And also what it feels like to receive the treatments.
When I got I had to have a surgery. I also got hydrocephalus from the disease itself, from valley fever. So I had to have 2 brain surgeries. One of them was for the hydrocephalus. The second one was to place the Ommaya Reservoir on my brain in here. And it kind of looks like the shape of a mouse to the computer with little holes in it. And what they do is they take like a regular shot and stick it in there, inject the amphotericin B through there, and after that, it's pretty horrible. I was shaking a lot. I had tremors really, really bad. My body was just like, it almost looked like convulsions, but it was tremors that would last for about an hour. And I would be burning up like I was in a fire, vomiting, diarrhea all at the same time. I couldn't really see. I was just completely, my vision went out. It's honestly a horrible, horrible thing to have to go through. Terrible.
And for people who aren't familiar with the term hydrocephalus, that is water on the brain. So that is
Right.
something that's the inflammation causes the swelling, if the water pressure is building up. So it's something that is so serious that a drug like that is, as bad as the drug had been, is still preferable to what was happening.
Yeah, I was pretty much a guinea pig at that time because I had two serious things going on, the hydrocephalus and the coccidioidomycosis. Both were extremely severe at that time. I had a lot of swelling in my brain. To do what they would do to treat one, which was the hydrocephalus, and to do what they would normally do to treat the coccidioidomycosis on the other hand, because I had masses all over my brain and behind my eye sockets, which were causing blindness in my eyes. And then also I had the cocci was also in my auditory canals, which I'm completely deaf on my right side now. For them to, and it was all down my spine also, but for them to treat one and the other, it was like one was going to cancel out the other. The treatments to the both were, at that time, because this was quite a while back, they felt that it was going to cancel out one treatment as the other because they needed to drain out the fluid off the brain. However, they needed to put medication into the brain because I had so much masses up in this top of my, body that they needed to treat. But they were worried that it was going to get drained out while they were draining out the fluid in my brain. So it was, they weren't sure if it would actually work for me.
We are glad that it did work.
Yeah, me too.
I'm
I
sure
can't
you
say
are.
that enough.
Yeah. What was it like when you knew that things were getting better for the treatments? Of course, you were getting less of the drug, and that had to feel good in itself. But how were things shaping up when you did not have to be on the amphotericin B?
The way that it happened was really strange because all of the doctors that I had, and there were so many, I just can't even count them on my two hands. In between there, the UCSF and Memorial Hospital, where I had to transfer out a month after, I just ended up with so many doctors and specialists from the damages of the coccidioidomycosis. Every one of them thought I wasn't going to make it. So I really didn't have anybody say you're doing a lot better or you're doing good now that you have the amphotericin B. It wasn't that they were being negative, but they wanted me to know because I was a single mom with children at that time, and they just wanted me to know reality. But after 6 months of treatments, I was so severely ill I couldn't even get to the hospital to do the treatment. I just couldn't stop vomiting, and I couldn't move. It was just nonstop. And I decided to skip my treatment. It was the week of my birthday in October. I decided I was going to skip the treatment. So the doctor agreed to that. And then the next treatment came around. He said, let's skip this week and we'll see how you do. After 2 weeks, he retested me. And it just so happened that, with a spinal tap, that it had greatly improved. A whole lot. I mean, dramatically improved. So they redid a head CT, MRI, spinal tap, all that. So they decided, let's just go ahead and stop for now. We'll leave the Ommaya Reservoir in and see where it goes from here. It was kind of like, we don't know how you're going to do. It's going to probably start back up again, and you're going to need it right away. So to me, I didn't feel a great sense of relief at that time because we really didn't know if I was really in the safe zone.
What year was this? Do you remember?
That was probably about 4.5 years ago.
So it was more than a full year since your valley fever symptoms started.
Several years. right? It was several years getting to the stage where you finally stopped taking amphotericin B from beginning to then.
The amphotericin B started, it was 6 months I was doing it.
But it was
And
several.
after that, like I said, they retested me, and it was doing okay for a while. We didn't really know where it was heading, but since then I have not had it. I've been on a high dose of diflucan since, but I have not had that since then.
Do you
Knock on wood.
do you wind up taking the generic, or do you actually take diflucan itself?
No, I do take the generic, yes. Fluconazole. Mm-hmm.
And what is the dosage that you're on maintenance with now?
800 milligrams.
And your body's
Yes,
able.
I've been on that 800 milligrams for the last 4.5 years. It's 4.5, 5 years, I'm not sure.
And your body's able to tolerate it?
Yeah, it's rough on you. There's a lot of side effects to fluconazole. There really is. But as time goes on, it seems like your body kind of adjusts to, not everything, but a lot of side effects your body adjusts to after a while. It's not a good thing to take, and you don't feel good on it, but you do adjust to some things.
Do you take it as one dose, one time a day, or do you split up your dose morning and night?
I split mine up. It makes me really, really dizzy, and if I take it all at once, it makes me too sick to even do anything. So I take one pill in the morning, and I take the rest of the pills in the evening.
And of course, you take it with food.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you find that helps any?
Well, I also take nausea medicine, and I take a lot of other medicines, but I think you definitely need to take it with a little bit of food, or crackers or something, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they suggest.
And, when you're first on that, it's hard. Even if you eat with it, you feel sick anyways. But like I said, I've been on it for so many years. It does lessen your side effects.
What would you say to somebody who says, well, you have valley fever, so you take medicine and then you're okay? What would you say to somebody like that to explain to them it's not that simple?
Well, Sharon, that's a tough question. It isn't that simple, that's for sure. Because even when you're taking the medicine, you're not feeling good a lot of days. You have good days, and then you have your bad days. Sometimes you're like, what the heck happened? I was feeling great for like the last 4 days. All of a sudden, you're just feeling just so bad. You have so many symptoms that are just out of this world. The way it just turns like that. And you think to yourself, is it something that I did, or was I doing too much? I don't know. But that's just the way this disease works. I would just tell them, don't ever miss a dose and keep taking it. Don't ever stop taking the medication. If you were a meningitis survivor, unless your doctor instructs you to, even then I would be a little weary. But there are brighter days, definitely.
Well, we're really glad to hear that there are brighter days. And a lot of people don't know that you have to work for a living. You can't just take time off and be home.
Yeah, I do have to work full time. Mm-hmm. And that's hard.
It's very hard, especially initially in the beginning. It must have been just next to impossible for you.
Even now, from the beginning, when I got out of the hospital, I went back to work within a couple of months after I was done with the treatments. And from then till now, which has been, like I said, almost 5 years, even now, I have so many days where once in a while I have to call in sick because I just am feeling so horrible, and I'm having one of those days. But a lot of times I push myself and I just go to work and keep going. I have this thing where I feel like if you just keep pushing yourself and keep going, that it keeps maybe your mind off things more. And
And that is
I
therapeutic
think
for a lot of people. I could see how it would be.
I can't say this is for everyone, but I feel a positive attitude plays a big part in it. You have to have a positive attitude, and you have to kind of just forget that you even have it for a while and just keep pushing on. Because when I pick myself up every morning and I'm not feeling good as soon as I wake up in the morning, because I don't, I have a hard time waking up and getting going and all that. It's not your normal person who's just tired. And I get to work, and I'm at work all day long, and then, my day is nonstop until I go to sleep at night. That's the only time my day stops. But for me, it's been working these last 5 years, so maybe I'm thinking that's the way to go.
Well,
Just keep pushing on.
a positive attitude is the best thing anyone could have with any disease, and especially with valley fever, because what you think tends to be realized. So as a hypnotherapist, I've seen that over and over again. If you change the way you think about things, a lot of things will change for the positive for you. So you had that positive attitude and still do, which is what I think has brought you through this whole thing.
Yeah, I think so. Even in the hospital when I was having the treatments, as horrible as it was, because it truly is horrible to have to go through that, I hate to have to say that, but I did maintain a very positive attitude, and I asked myself, how the heck was I able to do that? How did I maintain such a positive attitude? The nurses and the doctors were like, "Why are you smiling?" And they would always say that to me. Well, I don't know. What am I supposed to do? I'm just trying to make it through, and
Certainly, it was better than the alternative.
yeah, if you if you don't want to smile and keep fighting, and you want to just kind of revert back and let the disease take you over, that really can destroy you, I believe.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And
even for me, just talking about the disease and my journey through everything, that actually stresses me and my body out. Just recalling all of it, to be honest. But I try to just not think about it too much.
I do the same thing. When somebody asks me to talk about my case, and when I think back on some of the horrible moments of it, it's hard to even believe, it's like you separate yourself from that now.
Yeah.
And you don't really want to go there because you're doing better, and why think about those things?
Right. Because then you start just constantly worrying. You lose sleep over it at night. You start thinking about things too much again. Your mind just feeds off of it and goes crazy. You start thinking about, is that going to happen again tomorrow or tonight or everything else that goes with that,
Yeah. Well,
Am I going to make it?
we know that valley fever causes a lot of depression and anxiety in a lot of people. And
Yeah.
the best thing to do is, like you said, get that positive attitude. Don't think about the what ifs, and just make the best out of every day that you can. In fact, you probably should have told the nurses, why aren't you smiling? You're the ones
Yeah.
that are standing there able to walk around. I'm in this bed, not doing so hot.
Yes. That's great advice, Sharon.
The nurses and doctors will never see it coming.
So
Yep.
now that you've had these years go by, and here it is, 2014, what do you think is, what do you want to say as to where you are today and where you hope to be in the next several years?
I want to say where I am today, it took a lot of praying and positive attitude. I really feel that, I did pray a lot through all my treatments, and I had a lot of people praying for me. It pulled through, and, along with a few good doctors that I had and the treatments, amphotericin B is a horrible, horrible drug to have. But it also is a godsend in situations when you have to have it. It has saved many, many lives. And so I'm just thankful that I was able to pull through it all and be here today. still be here, be a mom, do the things I'm doing, even though I have bad days, or, I have more good days than bad days. And I'm just happy to be here. And I want to just keep going for as long as I can. And I'm hoping, being on this strong dose of medication like this I've been on for so long, I'm hoping that this will not affect my future. I'm hoping that I can keep going for years and still be here and doing good.
I don't
And
see,
for any,
I don't see any reason why that can't happen, because you've got the right attitude. You keep moving forward. You have a beautiful daughter that is there for you to care about, and she loves
yes,
you, and you want to be here for her, and she wants you to be here for her. So you have all the
yes,
positive things to look forward to there.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, and recently I was in touch with someone who was on. He had almost the same case I had. He had hydrocephalus, meningitis, and he was having the surgeries that I had had. He was so sick, nervous over everything, and I just told him, I said, let me tell you something. If I can do it, you can do it. And trust me, you're going to come out of this. You will. Soon this will all be over with, and you'll be doing great. You'll be back on your feet, and you'll be living your life. And he was so grateful that he had someone to, boost him up and just, give him those words of confidence at that time.
Yeah, that's,
So I hope,
yeah, go ahead.
I hope that, for anybody there's so many people that we see on the Valley Fever Survivor site that are going through what I've been through, and I hope they all can realize that, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is.
And it's great that you're there. I remember when you first came to Valley Fever Survivor, and I've seen a lot of changes in you since then. So there's been a lot of changes in me since my case was in 2001. And I see a lot of changes in other people that we know. And so all the newcomers that have found our site, they're just starting from scratch and trying to make sense out of the whole thing. And it's
Yeah.
people like yourself and others and Dave and myself that can go and help everybody else. And it's a great family that we have on our
Right,
site.
it is. Yes. And I'm so thankful to be a part of it.
Well, we're
I'm
glad you're
glad to have
there
you.
too. So I want to
Thank you.
thank you very much for taking your time to do the interview today. And I'm sure that a lot of people will get a tremendous amount out of this and an inspiration to be able to handle what's happening to them, as well as a better understanding of really what does it mean if you have a bad case of valley fever. It's not a piece of cake, and it's not typical fungus that you get on your feet. This is something that's very serious, and it's incurable to date, and hopefully eventually we will have a cure as well as a
Yeah.
vaccine to stop people from even getting it initially.
Yeah, I am so hoping for that also.
Well, I hope you have a good evening, and thank you again for taking the time to do this.
Okay, thank you.